So, hi everybody. We're doing this talk for the MARICAS gang in Barcelona. I thought it would be good for anyone who maybe doesn't know who we are to have a little introduction, introduce yourself. So, Michelle, we'll start with you. Tell us little bit about who you are and what's your story.
I'm Shay Manetti. I am a London-based queer DJ. I run a party called Femme Fresh, which is about supporting women and female-identified artists for a predominantly female crowd. I do quite a lot of work for kind of like women in the music industry, and I'm a DJ, producer, vocalist, etc., general music bod on the East London scene.
A long list of things that you do. Fair play to you. Josh, tell us about you.
I'm Josh, and I am a London-based queer DJ and recording artist. I run a label and a club night and a panel discussion called Love Child, and it's a queer label and collective. And we host queer parties and collaborate with various different queer parties in London and internationally. And through the label, we predominantly focus on putting out queer underground artists who are trying to crack into the industry and promote them to that. And through Love Child Talks, we address different kind of topics that are affecting our community. A lot of things that we'll all be talking about with friends and amongst whoever, and just bring them to the forefront and give them a chance to talk about them and see how we can make them go away.
Wicked, thank you. Shay?
And you missed out Party Boy, Josh.
Go on.
I'm Shay, Malt, and I run Adonis, a monthly queer party in North London. And aging, weathering Party Boy as well.
Wicked, thank you. And I'm Saoirse, DJ, radio host, producer, and regular horny little Irish extraordinaire. Right. So I think it'd be good to kind of give people who are, I guess, tuned in from the rest of Europe an idea of what's going on here in London and in the UK. With regards to what the government have done for us, I think it really depends on who you are, what kind of work you're in. I think the majority of our world who work in like freelance or creative roles and not like don't run their own businesses in a way which the schemes kind of help, have been kind of truly fucked, because there's not really much help for us except for the option to apply for universal credit, which often doesn't even cover half of your monthly outgoing costs. There is schemes in place for people who work full time or who have salaries where they can get a payment of 80%, but from a lot of the people I think that work in our world, that's not the case. Kind of full-time like salary jobs, and then for I guess venues and promoters, there's not really too much. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I know with like for instance, promoters who have been asked to set up small limited companies, there's been nothing for them, and then venues there's no mortgage pay like freezes or rent freezes, so there's still a huge amount of costs coming out for promoters and venues that isn't being covered in any way by people coming in the door. So it's very kind of leaves the scene in a very volatile situation for the whole ecosystem, down to the staff of those bars, venues, clubs and promoters, whatever, to the promoters themselves, the artists, and just everyone else that's involved in the whole situation. So I thought it would be good to have a little chat about how you feel you're getting on, what's the kind of major issues that you're facing, and how do you feel the government are handling it for your situation currently. Shay, do you want to start?
I just feel like really we all feel the same, like we've just been left behind, and anything that they have the government has like put in place has been an afterthought every time, and it's like they're catching up on just the outrage of people to like try and cover their own backs just to make sure everyone's okay. But we've not been thought about until like there's been so much pressure and so much like anger from people for them to actually stop and listen, which it just seems to be a continuous thing. Like everybody's just left behind and we're just waiting. Like, for example, I'm self-employed. I don't know about everybody else, but
same there as well.
That has taken so long to come into, just to come into effect that they're going to help us. And they still haven't even, it's going to be not until June that we even see a penny. So a lot of people like in Clubland saw their income just dry up like overnight, basically. So they've been left with no source of income for 2 months now, which is just insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what is coming in June? I'm not too familiar with this.
So you can apply for self-employment.
So it's the employment scheme, so self-employed income scheme.
Yeah, so you can get an 80% of your profits from your self-employed business. You get 80% of that, up to a maximum of £2,500 a month, for like a 3-month one-off payment.
And is that backdated?
It's from March until June.
Okay, right.
I mean, it's okay, but people need that money 2 months ago, not in a month's time.
And also, even just from that, from them announcing that, what's really messed up with that is that a lot of people don't meet the criteria for that. There's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to be able to even access that at all. I mean, I think it's kind of based, I can't remember off the top of my head how it's based on, but obviously like your earnings and various things go into it. But I know so many people who are, probably just starting out in their careers and, haven't earned that much money to this. And the way it's worked out, like so many people are still going to get left out from that, which is pretty crap.
Right.
I agree. I think the government's been very reactive rather than active. They've just kind of like waited as long as possible to be able to make any kind of like financial plans. Yeah. And gone, we should probably do something now because everyone's a bit fucked. And actually, they should have kind of thought about it a long time before that they did and implemented things much sooner. Like you're right, like having to wait 2 months for the self-employment scheme has just been ridiculous. What's people supposed to do for those 2 months? And a lot of people, although there was the mortgage freeze for some people, actually the mortgage freeze wasn't actually any good for people in the long term. So some people didn't take that. So people were kind of expecting, oh, it's okay, I won't have to pay my rent, but lots of people do still have to pay rent.
Yeah, no rental support whatsoever.
No, nothing. Yeah, which is crazy because, like, if landlords are still asking for rent but you're not getting paid, like, what are you supposed to do? I don't understand.
My flatmate moved out at the end of April, and I was having to find a new flatmate in this time because I was obviously like really worried that I was going to have to find the other half. And I managed to find a new guy, but from the people that I spoke to that were sort of looking for flats, everyone was literally saying everyone's left London because so many people just literally have lost their jobs overnight, can't afford to stay here, and will just move back to their parents. So loads of people were like putting rent for really cheap because people just moved out and they were actually having to like pay the other part of the rent and they weren't able to afford it. So like the rental market's gone massively down now because people are just trying to fill those rooms just to get some kind of money in.
Because London it's been, it's one of the most difficult cities to live in anyway as an artist when you're getting paid every week, never mind when you're not, And I think that it's going to create a bit of a suction hole for especially our world, for people who just can't really be here for the time being, or, they maybe have to go back and live with their parents, whatever they have to, if they can. But what do you think, I guess that kind of leads me on to like the next question was that, what do you predict for, I guess, the queer community in the event space after this, if that does mean that a lot of people are leaving and, they just can't really be here for the time being?
It's going to be a real slow road back to any sort of normality, isn't it? And we're going to be the last ones to really get our lives back to normal with venues and, like you said, artists and just people not being around. we're going to be lagging behind every other sector, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's like, you know, the sad truth is that we're going to lose a few venues along this journey. That's the really sad truth, and we have to be really open and honest about that, which is really bad. So that's going to make one thing a very difficult thing to recover from, and having to now adjust to different ways of us trying to save this community is going to become really, really important. So if you have to see things like live streams and stuff like that, but you know, again with the venues, like, you know, even when we've looked at things like maybe in China, for instance, where they started to open a few of their clubs recently, and you know, even then, it's like they had to do it at such a reduced level of staff. You know, they're still trying to recoup their costs back from this whole time period. So you know, even when it is open, like Shay said, yeah, it's going to be a long journey because they're going to have to try and make enough money to pay their staff, to pay the people who are DJing. You know, it's going to be like massively long. You know, we're looking at, you know, a depression and recession which we've never seen ever enough in our time.
But also, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be scared to go into places that are adaptable.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think off the back of this, there's going to be so many people that are going to be quite germophobic and like not want to be in confined spaces with people. So that in itself means that we will lose quite a lot of the crowd.
Yeah. You know, the beauty of the, I guess, queer events is they are, you know, people are intimate with each other, they're sweaty, they're you know, rammed, you know, there's a lot of like touching and kissing going on. And a big worry for me would be that, you know, they would be spotlighted as, I guess, spreaders. Do you know what I mean? If things are to start happening again, like, you know.
The whole thing, is it in Korea is it Korea? I think, where there's the gay club, and they're basically kind of tracing anyone who's been to that gay club and kind of like pinpointing them and saying that they're kind of spreading it. And yeah, you're right. Like queer venues do tend to be, or queer nights, queer parties do tend to be a little bit more intimate than your average. And that's the beauty of them, to be honest. And like, if that's then taken away, or if that continues, and then everyone, you're right, kind of has a spotlight and says it's the queer community that's spreading it, or whatever, and that's obviously not going to look good either.
Yeah. What's Chariot's going to do?
I mean, what do you think? Sorry, I was going to say if there was like any positive possibilities to come off the back of it as well, given that things will probably be smaller, more localized.
I think more localized, maybe more underground, and like a return to like illegal warehouse parties, stuff like that. Like it could be eventually it could be a really good thing for us and our scene, because it could be it just could reset all of the shit stuff that we were dealing with, and like
also a chance for local talent, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I think depending on when borders will be open and things like that, like, you know, it will give local DJs a chance to play in venues they probably never thought. If we're relying on bigger venues because smaller ones have gone, then it gives them a chance to try, you know, to have to DJ or to play or to perform. I think that's a really.
I definitely think we're going to go much more grassroots, and I think also off the back of this, there has been quite a lot of. You can see that the queer community particularly like really wants to stick together and really wants to help each other out. And I think off the back of that as well, I think a lot of the community will want to support the inner community and the local community. So they'll want to see those back more than they'll probably want to see a big headliner. And I think, I think there definitely is going to be kind of like a lot more support locally, grassroots. And yeah, that's going to be quite interesting. Kind of like,
I think people are still going to want to go out. Like, even if, you know, there may be some people, I think a lot of people are going to be gagging to go out, and, you know.
I'm already gagging to go out.
Yeah, and I hope by October, let's say September, October, when maybe smaller venues can open again, that there will be better treatment or whatever that is available anyway. So the risk of getting it and having a severe illness is going to be less. which might mean that people would be a little bit more willing to just get it. Do you know what I mean?
I think the annoying thing about this country is where we have just lagged behind every other country, and just, you know, it's been so long for us to actually get our ass into gear and do something about it. We could be the ones suffering for way longer before we get to go back to normality than everyone else. So that's a really frustrating thing.
Yeah, and with regards to like how we can, I think what's going to come from this is that, queer community are already in a very vulnerable place, and minorities are already in a more vulnerable place in London, and this is going to make it even more so. I mean, some of the things that I was thinking about was there needs to be a refocus back into like how we support those communities and charities and so forth, and looking at what charities are going to be really focusing on the bad things that come off the back of this, like I guess mental health, just, you know, a lot of things with regards to like addiction, abuse, whatever, and just like homelessness, I guess, is going to be a big problem as well with regards to, you know, people not being able to pay their rent. Have you guys thought of anything about like how we can support our community in that way?
I think coming together and doing things like this is going to be really, really important for us. I think the more opportunities we have to involve in, with the introduction of things like virtual superstore or Glory TV, and which is giving people a chance to just do things at home. So while we're in this kind of moment where we have to kind of really embrace the idea of streaming, and I think that's a great thing, we should also still have the mindset of like, let's not get too comfortable with this, because we're going to try and get ourselves out of it, but we have to do it and make sure that we're all still talking about ways we can do it, and not just getting comfortable with the streaming side of things, you know what I mean? Because I think it's just going to make everybody go, well, this is the norm now. We need to adapt to it, and it will stop us really trying to, push to save our venues and say, well, we are going to get out of this. There will be a day that we will go be in a club and socialize.
We need to be careful about who we kind of get into bed with, because there's going to be like, all of us are going to be needing to earn and to do what we can to move things again. But like, I'm already hearing about a lot of very straight, have never had any interest in the queer community at all, like major, like global, event corporations who want to, I guess, commodify the queer community for their own benefit. And I think that's going to happen a lot next year, because we'll be looking, we need things to do,
That's been happening in London for a year or so anyway, really. So I can only see it getting worse, to be honest. Yeah,
for sure. I think, it's something that like I'm constantly getting phone calls about, and it's worrying, because it's like, it used to be maybe once or twice a year you'd hear about these things. Now it's like once a month you're getting a phone call about something, and I'm like, why are you doing this? You know what I mean? Like, just asking them straight up, like, yeah, and then that would make it, again, it's like, it's just washing, our community with something that isn't really adding up value for.
I think as well with things like Pride Month coming up as well, is going to be a really good opportunity for us to just kind of join and kind of, show how we can come together and support to get out of this as well, rather than it being this person's not being celebrated or this person isn't. It's like we're really going to, Pride has been such a hot topic for everyone over the last couple of years, and how it's celebrated and who's in this. And I think if we can really claim that back and use it as a way to say, how are we going to get ourselves out of the situation? Let's try and promote that, rather than the fact of us being segregated or whatever you want to call it. I think that that's going to be really beneficial.
I think one of the beautiful things that could possibly come from it, though, is that now that we have opened up the resources to be able to do a lot of live streaming, which wasn't really something that anyone kind of did much before, apart from kind of like, your boiler rooms and things like that. But now that has become quite a normal thing to do, it could mean that we could have cross-global parties, especially where you could we could team up with other places and kind of like almost tag team different venues, different parties at different times, and that could be quite exciting to like not just this is what's happening in this city. It's like actually lots of cities could join up and have parties at the same time.
Yeah, that's a nice thought. Yeah.
I think as well, we'll just like, if there is no scene left and no venues or whatever, then we will be able to rebuild it. Like, I've just seen so many amazing things of people like coming together with, like the Dalston Superstore. They've done this hardship fund where they're like collecting money and donations and then distributing it to people like directly affected by it, rather than like a third party charity. So who's to say we can't do that with venues or spaces, you know, like crowdfunding and like community spaces where everybody puts a bit in to use. I can see there'd be lots of sort of good opportunities really like that.
It's one of those things, well, that does have to get like, I mean, it is really bad, but it has to get quite bad before it can get good. Like, you know, we've seen when venues have been threatened to be closed in London before, the response it's got from, you know, people that they really care and so forth, and it works. I think we just need to be vocal about it. When we can see that it's at that tipping point, we need to start getting people together to like do whatever they can to ensure that, you know, those core venues like the Superstore or venues like the Cause and venues that are very welcoming to our community can survive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And spaces that are, you know, I guess ones in which we feel comfortable and so forth, because they're usually the ones that are making the least amount of money anyway. I mean, some of them anyway. So like, we need to look at ways and how we can support those spaces as well as our own community or whatever. I think for me personally, I think what's going to be really important is for everyone to understand exactly what each other's issues are, so that we can come to like work together and have a resolution, whether it's, you know, you're working with venues who maybe charged too much in the past, or you're working with agents, or you're working with promoters or venues of artists and so forth. Like, everyone needs to meet in the middle, and everyone needs to understand what their issues are. Because if I'm, you know, just seeing things from an artist's perspective and I'm not making all the considerations of everyone else that's in this kind of ecosystem, then, you know, then it's just not going to work. Like, we have to kind of have I guess, like guidelines for each other to restart it again, so that everyone can at least make something from it and not be just like completely done over, you know.
I think with the fact that everybody is in the same position, the rug has just been pulled under everybody's feet. Like high paid artists, clubs, like everybody's in the same boat. So hopefully it would have just like leveled people's thoughts and expectations of
and reset as well.
Reset,
I think on that side of things, that like continuing from what you're saying, Shay, I think that's the, like, you know, on the flip side of things with everything, obviously what we're going through is a, you know, really tough time, but I think that was a reset button that was just kind of itching to be pressed anyway, do you know what I mean? And now it's kind of happened, and it's happened to everyone. I think, you know, a lot of positive could come from it going forward, but it's just going to take a lot of time to, you know, get back.
It will be interesting to see how much the playing field will level on the other side of it, in terms of like, you know, you did have a lot of DJs that were up here, and then you've got kind of DJs that are down here, and there's not much in the middle. And in terms of kind of like finances, you've got these DJs that are paid, you know, being paid thousands of pounds per gig, and then you've got these DJs that literally like living hand to mouth. And I think, especially at the beginning, it's only going to be small venues that are open. We're not going to be able to travel globally. It is going to be much about a local scene. So those bigger DJs are probably still going to want to get gigs. So they're actually going to lower their fees. They're going to pay the smaller clubs, and possibly even like not necessarily headline. So it's going to be quite an interesting, you know, and humbling experience for those DJs at the top, but also experience for the DJs at the bottom that might actually get a chance to play, as you were saying before, like places they might not necessarily been able to play on lineups. You know.
Yeah, and that's why I think agents and like artists, bigger artists, need to like not make demands that it has to be them and that they have to be here and blah blah blah, because things are just they have to change, you know, and
they're out the window a little bit, and people need to
it needs to change anyway. And I hope that, you know, that, and, you know, if they don't like it, well, see you later. There's plenty of people that'll take their place, you know. So what have you guys been doing to try and keep yourself sane then? Anything?
I find going to the park and screaming really helps. Honestly, I'm being serious. It really does. Like when you screaming, yeah. Just go in the park and scream. It's like, because you know, we were talking about this before. I think every week is just a different challenge, isn't it? Like you have, you know, it's been however many weeks now, 8 weeks or whatever, that we've been in this lockdown, and I think you have one week where you're like, oh my God, and then you have the productive week, and then you have the week where you read too much news and you think it's doom and gloom, and then you have the really down week, and then you have the, you know, you go through so many different emotions through this, so it's just about trying to like make sure that you're letting that out and going out and just like not sitting in there. I think, yeah, just that and drinking copious amounts of wine has...
Have you all drank more or less alcohol than when you were?
I basically had like 2 glasses of gin and tonic.
Oh.
I've had 2 glasses of wine the whole time.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I know. You don't believe me, Josh.
Did you drink much before that?
I was loving it, going out, drinking a glass of wine at home, but I was ill for like nearly 8 weeks of it, so I've been kind of like led in and doing fuck all really. Just
so, bro, me and Shay have both had coronavirus.
We think we have. I've self-diagnosed and I've had it. Yeah.
I mean, I bought a test
because
I was confirmed coronavirus, but like I bought a test because I was so fucking, you know, paranoid and anxious about it, because I'm on my own as well. But then luckily I didn't get the test results for about a week later, and I was feeling a little bit better then, because I think if I had got them when I was like really ill, I would have just freaked the fuck out, you know what I mean?
We both got it at the same time, and it was when it was like the very beginning of
just before lockdown. I got it. Yeah.
You couldn't get through to NHS. You couldn't speak to a doctor. They were not testing you, and you were just like led in your bed feeling like death, really.
I'm not gonna die. Yeah. I think for me, that's what I've also like not been drinking as much, because it just sent me into such a spiral of like anxiety and like worrying about my health and everything, that like the thoughts of doing anything that might make me ill again was just like, no way.
Stay away.
Eating so much, just eating. Which I was
doing. Food, that, and going for walks, and
that's what I've been like. I'm the sort of person that's like, if someone says do you want to go for a walk, I'm like, why?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I'm not walking.
Where are we going? But actually, I've been going for a walk for like 2 hours every day, and I've started to actually ask my friends if they were like, oh, everyone fancy a walk with me, even though we're in lockdown. I've actually been on a couple of walks with a couple of friends 2 meters apart. But yeah, I've been going on walks every single day, and like chatting to people on video chat whilst I'm doing it, so like keeping myself occupied, or going for a run every day. And I think that's kind of been keeping me like sane more than anything. Actually getting out, going outside, not keeping myself indoors, going for a run, going for a walk, just kind of getting some exercise, talking to people whilst I'm doing it. Like that's been the one thing that's kind of been...
I keep telling myself, like, because sometimes I just feel so awful, and then I just keep telling myself, like, you know, it's unlikely, hopefully like nothing like this will ever happen again, but it's unlikely that in our lifetime we will have this time again. Do you know what I mean? If you're like not working at the moment, it's unlikely we'll ever have a gap like that again. So in 10 years, when you're fucking working your arse off and you're like, God, it'd be great to take 6 months off or whatever, that's never going to happen again. So I just keep telling myself, I might as well try and enjoy it now.
I was feeling quite guilty as well, because you see so many people like they're using this time to be so proactive and do like all of these things, and I've just sat home and watched TV basically. So
I think what's been really good as well is just coming. I did I did, yeah, it was about 2 weeks just off social media, and that absolutely helped as well, because I think, you just kind of, you go on there, it's either really doom and gloom and everyone's making these public announcements about things, or people are doing this, whatever, and it really messes with your psyche. I think just like switching off from that, going for, like Michelle's saying, going for the walks, and one thing, I guess you guys all live with someone else in their house, right? So like, I think I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and just because like Fiona lives with me, and she went to go and see her family the other day, and I literally had she went 3 days, and I had 1 day, the first day she left, and I literally had separation anxiety, and I was sitting thinking like, my God, imagine if like I lived by myself and I was going to all of this, like how the hell, all the people out there who are living by yourself, like hats off to you, because
Me.
there you go.
Yeah, and it was because when I was ill, like nobody could look after me or anything, nobody wants to come near you.
I did one day, and I literally felt like my world had been like pulled, like a rug had been pulled away. I was like, oh my God, and I had too much time to think. And I used to live by myself before, and I really enjoyed it, and I never thought that I would ever, feel that having somebody. Anyway, it was
There's kind of benefits and not to it. Like I've been very lonely, but also I think I've lived in the houses in the past where, like, I live with 6 people or whatever, and I don't think.
Imagine that, living in a shared house. It would just be awful.
Oh, like, 6, the last Caffe I lived in, there was 6 of us or something. So, no.
And just everybody being depressed and like having cabin fever, like.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also always going to be one, I guess, who's like doesn't give a fuck about like social distancing or whatever.
Yeah.
He's going out, seeing mates, and coming back, and you're like. I've heard that from a few people, just like living with housemates that are just like out every night seeing different people, and then coming back to the gaff, and it's like, well, what are you supposed to do with that?
I think people have not taken it seriously because we haven't been given serious instruction, so I can kind of understand why people have just not really taken it for serious what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, because probably a lot of us here aren't, we're not like because a lot of people aren't from London, so we're not around our parents or our grandparents or more vulnerable people or whatever, like aren't like right next to us. But I think that like to see what's going on in, I guess, just
Manchester,
care homes and also just like more like minority groups, whatever, where there's obviously a lot more people around and everything. It's just like I feel super just like lucky and privileged and everything, and also like guilty that like I don't know, that like I wish there was kind of more I could do. I joined one of those groups in the area where you can kind of deliver food and stuff like that, because after I had coronavirus I was like, right, that's it, I need to like go and help people, and blah, blah.
I joined one of those groups, and then after getting about 50 messages a day, I just got really bad social anxiety and couldn't cope with it. I was
get one.
Like arguing with each other and everything as well. So I was just like, oh Jesus.
I did do some food bank deliveries with a friend, which was quite nice. And like just picked up loads of food. I think they got donations of like 700 quid or something. We just went around the shops and managed to get loads of food from the food bank. So I did that for a couple of days. And I did really want to do some volunteering as well, because like I'm like, I've had no symptoms, I'm good, I've got a car, I can kind of take things. But yeah, I joined groups and they're all on WhatsApp, and there's literally 50 messages a day, and I was just like, I actually can't.
That's too much.
Can't deal with a WhatsApp group like at the best of
times. Strangers, yeah. I do think that one thing that has come from this is that, like, we've all probably we've been quite lucky in the lives that we've been living, and it's made us maybe think more about like, how lucky we are and how privileged we are, and like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel a lot more, I guess, like willing to try and do things that might like help others or whatever, even if it's just reaching out to people that are probably dealing with some shit in their head that like you may not have reached out to in the past or whatever.
It's been a really good time. to for doing things like this and reconnecting with friends, even family, even, you know. I think that the first week it happened, I think I spoke to people, I hadn't FaceTime people that I hadn't spoken to face, and also just picking up the phone and calling someone. You know, we get so used to just texting and messaging, and actually taking the time to go, it's actually all right to call someone on the phone and have a chat.
Yeah, I've been speaking with my ma every day, and that never happened before.
There's definitely been roller coasters of like ups and downs, and I think everyone is going on different kind of like emotional roller coasters. And I've kind of tried to be like, when I've been on a good bit, I've just tried to kind of reach out to friends that I know that maybe haven't been, just to be like, hey, how you doing? Like, check in on people. Obviously, if you're not in a good place yourself, it's like, I need to like sort myself out. But
'cause every friend I think that I have that maybe I wasn't aware of or never spoke about it before, who like has mental health issues at the moment, you know, and a lot of these people that are telling me this are people who said, I've never felt anything like this before, you know. So
amount of new feelings and experiences that people are going through differently.
Yeah.
I think one thing that might come off the back of this is that I think there will be more conversations about mental health, because I think I've noticed that some people and some friends of mine who've never experienced any mental health issues before are struggling and have had struggles and have had, like you said, emotions.
Talking about it on the news as well, which that never happened before. Like the government are saying, make sure you're looking after your mental health or whatever. And it's like, when did you ever hear, you know, the Prime Minister talking about that before? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You think though, like after him suffering with this coronavirus, that, I mean, I was stupid, I suppose, to think that he'd come out and be like, I want to save people. You know? I did think that he would be more empathetic, because, like, if he was in intensive care, I'd say he had a pretty hard time in there.
I think,
did he even have one?
Did he even have it?
I don't think he did.
What I didn't like Boris was that he, you know, with the Tory government and how they've let us, the NHS, get to this situation, you know, for him to come out of it, you know, and praise the nurses who helped him, who were, you know, from Europe. That was one thing. And then to try and, you know, and all of a sudden it was like, you know, we need to know, and then stay home, say the NHS is like, well, where was all of that when we needed this before?
And they've just announced that the people who are going to foot this bill for the people like who are being furloughed are public sector workers. Firstly, they haven't been furloughed, so they're working all this time. They're the ones who are going to have to pay the bill for it. And they're the ones who are risking their lives and told to go back to work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
We can get angrier and angrier and angrier.
Yeah. Right, we'll stop. All right, guys. Well, thanks, everybody. I hope you're all doing all right. And I'm sure we'll get to rave again soon. What do you think then? Do you think in like September maybe, first event?
Do you know what? If we could get like the same kind of format that they did in China, which was the QR codes to, you know, so when you're going into a club, that it basically tells them your status. You know, if we can get that, then I think we have some kind of hope. I think the second wave is inevitable, that is going to happen, but we just need something that is, you know, social distancing in a club. It's just not, you know, especially like we were saying before, in our clubs, it's just not something that we do. We're used to human touch. We're used to all these kind of things. And if you're going to be in there, I think it should just be something that proves that you've had it, or if you haven't, and then something that, you know, just so you can, And
I think everybody has to have a more responsibility within themselves to, you know, if you are feeling a little bit like you've got a cold or something like that, then whereas before you might just go out and like on, but you need to stay in because you could be fucking up a load of other people. So I think there's like a real like self-awareness that people are going to have around about being around others. That might then make them a little bit more compassionate and a bit more caring, really.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess. I mean, I guess my fear is that, like, there's also that kind of ethical question is, you know, what we do, is it going to make it worse? And then how do we feel about that? Do you know what I mean? That's another question that I've been like playing around my head, but we won't know until we see what like it looks like then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like right now, if they were to say nightclubs could reopen, I'd be like, no way.
We did Adonis on the 7th of March, and that was just as it was like about to peak, all of the coronavirus hysteria. I felt really guilty about like putting the night on, because I was just like, this is a ticking time bomb. And then, you know, a week later, it just exploded. So yeah, you have a moral responsibility really yourself to...
Totally. I did the same. I did gigs that weekend, but that was my last paycheck for fuck knows. Do you know what I mean? So it was just kind of like there was a part of it was like, do I work or do I like do this? Because the government were telling us, you go out, like do what you want. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, everybody.
Okay, thanks,
Have a good evening, and we'll speak soon.
Speak soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.